Chapter 1: The Fall Before Dawn. 8 years of loyalty ended with one sentence. Ethan, you're holding the company back. Clara's voice was smooth, detached, the kind of calm that came after she'd already made her decision. I stared at her across the boardroom table, the faint reflection of city lights flickering against the glass walls. My chest felt tight. It wasn't just the words. It was who they came from. The woman I loved. My CEO. My everything. And standing beside her, with that smug, perfectly measured smile, Daniel Reed. The same man who'd spent the past year pretending to be my friend. While quietly stealing my projects, he placed a hand on Clara's shoulder, far too familiar. You'll understand, Ethan. This is for the company's future. Company's future, right? That's what people always say when they're stabbing you in the chest. I managed to keep my tone even. So, this is it. After 8 years of building this company with you, for me, Clara corrected softly, crossing her legs. Her heels tapped against the polished floor, steady and deliberate. You built it for me, Ethan. You're a good man. But I need someone who can keep up. Someone like Daniel. I laughed, the sound dry and cracked. So that's how you see it. I was just a stepping stone. She didn't answer. She didn't have to. Her silence said it all. When I looked at Daniel again, he didn't even flinch. Just stood there, his hand still on her shoulder. Like he'd already claimed what used to be mine. The company, the woman, the dream. Effective immediately, Clara said. Her tone businesslike. You're terminated. HR will handle your severance. I've already signed the release forms. She slid a folder across the table, neat and cold. The same folder I once used to seal million-dollar deals for her. I stared at it, then at her. Do I even get a reason? Her lips curved slightly. You're emotional, Ethan. Sentimentality clouds judgment. You never knew when to separate business from feelings. That stung. Because she was right. I didn't. I believed in her more than profit margins. I skipped sleep, turned down better offers, and defended her when the board called her ruthless. I gave her loyalty when she only wanted obedience. Now I was just another liability to eliminate. I picked up the folder, flipping through the legal pages. Generous, I said flatly. You're buying my silence. Clara leaned back, a faint smile playing on her lips. Call it gratitude. Daniel chuckled. Take the offer, Ethan. Move on. We'll handle things from here. Something in me snapped. I stood up slowly, pushing the chair back. My hands were steady, but my voice shook. You think you can replace me with him? I looked straight at Clara. You're making a mistake. For a second, her eyes flickered. Just a flicker, like she wasn't as sure as she wanted to be. But she didn't say anything. She never did when it mattered. So I smiled. Good luck, Clara. You'll need it. And I walked out. No dramatic goodbye. No begging, no threats. Just silence. Outside her office, the entire floor had already heard the rumors. People avoided eye contact as I passed. My assistant looked like she wanted to say something, but I just gave her a faint smile. It's fine, I told her. I was overdue for a vacation. By the time the elevator doors closed, my reflection stared back at me. Same suit, same tie, same face. But something inside was gone. When I reached the parking lot, the night air hit me like a slap. I laughed under my breath. The city skyline was a blur of gold and blue. The same view Clara used to say was her empire. Her empire, not ours. I unlocked my car and sat there for a moment, gripping the steering wheel. 8 years of work, gone in a 10-minute meeting. The betrayal didn't even hurt the way I expected it to. It just felt hollow. I pulled out my phone, scrolling through old messages, Clara's late-night texts. Her voice notes telling me she couldn't do this without me. Lies wrapped in silk. My screen lit up with a new message from her. Clara, I hope you understand this is for the best. I stared at it for a long moment, then deleted it for the best. Sure, maybe she was right. Maybe losing everything was exactly what I needed. Because for the first time in years, I wasn't her shadow anymore. The night I went home, poured myself to fingers of whiskey. and opened my laptop. The company email access was already revoked. Efficient as ever. I should have expected that. But while they were busy celebrating my downfall, I started writing something new. An idea I buried months ago because Clara said it was too risky. A tech platform that could predict market behavior using adaptive learning. It was wild, unstable, revolutionary. And it was mine. I saved the file under one word, Phoenix. Because I was done burning for someone else's dream. Chapter 2. The Ashes of What Was Mineth. Morning after my termination, my apartment fell to quiet. It was strange how silence can hurt more than words ever could. 8 years ago, I bought this place because Clara said the view looked like ambition. Now, every time sunlight hit those glass windows, all I saw was the reflection of a fool who believed her. I made coffee, black and bitter, and opened my laptop again. The file name Phoenix blinked at me. That single word had become my only reason to get up. It was more than a project, it was my redemption. A new system that could outthink algorithms, outsmart markets, and expose fake trends before they crashed. Clara always said it was too ahead of its time. Maybe that's why she didn't want me to build it. Because deep down, she knew what would happen if I did. I opened my emails, expecting silence. But there it was, a single unread message from an address I hadn't seen in years. From Adrian Shaw, investor, subject. Heard what happened. You still building that thing you mentioned in Vegas? A half smile tugged at my lips. Adrian was the kind of man who could smell blood in the water and opportunity right behind it. I typed back, yeah. Phoenix, you said you wanted something disruptive. You still in? His reply came 5 minutes later. Lunch. My office. 2 p.m. It was sudden. But then again, the world doesn't wait for the broken dot. By 1:55 p.m. I was standing in front of a glass tower downtown, sleek, brutal, and humming with ambition. Shaw Capital. I'd helped Clara get this firm as a client once. The irony wasn't lost on me. Adrian met me in the lobby himself. Sharp suit, sharper grin. Ethan Cole, he said, shaking my hand like he already owned a piece of me. Heard the queen finally cut off her night. I forced a smirk. Something like that. He led me into his office, floor-to-ceiling glass. A skyline view that made the city look like a chessboard. So, he said, pouring two glasses of scotch, tell me about Phoenix. Convince me it's worth my money. I opened my laptop, pulling up the prototype slides I'd spent half the night building. My voice steadied as I spoke. Phoenix is predictive intelligence, real-time market adaptation. It doesn't just follow data, it learns from human behavior. It'll make conventional trading AI look obsolete. Adrian leaned forward, eyes gleaming. And Clara never backed this? I laughed bitterly. She said I dreamed it big. He grinned. That's exactly the kind of dream I fund. We talked numbers, shares, control. By the time we shook hands, he was in 20% stake for $2 million in seed. It wasn't much, but it was enough to start. As I left, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Clara, you met with Shaw. My chest tightened. Of course she already knew. Shaw had been one of her contacts once. I typed back, you monitoring me now? Her reply was instant. Don't do this, Ethan. Walk away while you can. I stared at her words, jaw tightening. You made sure I had nothing left to lose, I whispered to myself. Then I replied, too late. 2 weeks passed in a blur. Days bled into nights, fueled by caffeine, frustration, and the echo of her betrayal. I built the prototype from scratch in a rented co-working space that smelled like ambition and burnt coffee. Phoenix began to breathe, lines of code turning into movement, chaos turning into order. Every time it ran a successful simulation, I felt a pulse of something I hadn't felt in months, power. Then came her. I was debugging a script one night when a soft voice broke my focus. Your server's overheating, she said, placing a cup of coffee beside me. I looked up, wide eyes. Warm smile, hair pulled into a messy ponytail. She wore a staff badge, Isabella Hart, IT support. Didn't realize anyone else worked this late. I muttered. She shrugged. Didn't realize anyone else fried hardware this fast. I laughed for the first time in weeks. You always insult new clients? Only the reckless ones. She smiled. What's Phoenix? The way she said it, curious, not calculating, disarmed me. I hesitated, then said, something that's going to change everything. She tilted her head. Sounds like something that could burn you alive. Maybe, I said, but maybe it'll light the world instead. She didn't say anything, just smiled softly. Then let it burn bright. That night, as I watched her leave, I realized something strange. For the first time since Clara, someone had looked at me not as a mistake to fix, but as a man still capable of rising. A month later, Phoenix went live for early testing, and within 48 hours, it outperformed 3 major hedge fund algorithms. Word spread fast. Too fast, Adrian called. We've got interest from investors and enemies. You ready for that? I looked out the window. The city lights were alive again. I've been ready since the day she fired me. But deep down, I knew Clara wouldn't let me rise this easily. She built an empire on my back once. She'd do anything to stop me from building my own. And if she came for me again, this time, I'd be ready to burn her empire to the ground. Chapter 3. When shadows try to steal the light. First sign of trouble was small. A late-night server crash that looked like nothing until the numbers didn't add up. I'd been awake for 30 hours straight, watching Phoenix chew through simulations and spit out cleaner, sharper predictions every cycle. The dashboard readouts were addictive. I was high on code and the smell of instant coffee. Isabella, the IT woman who kept showing up with a paper cup and sensible sneakers, had an easy laugh that cut through my stress like a lighter through fog. She'd stayed the night too, plugging server racks back together when one of our cooling fans fried. Someone's throttling the feed, she said, frowning over the terminal. Her fingers moved quick, sure. Look, packets drop right after every successful run. It's like someone's trying to starve your model. I leaned close. The log timestamps were messy, out of rhythm. Sabotage, I asked, hating the word. It felt too dramatic, like a movie line. She shrugged, eyes serious. Could be a bug. Could be a bored intern. Could be hostile. Want me to trace it? I should have said yes and handed it off. Instead I said, trace it. And because I was stubborn, I stayed. Isabella worked like she was moving puzzle pieces into place. There, she said finally, voice low. It's not from our network. Someone's coming in from a proxy farm overseas. They're masking themselves through 100 IPs. I felt the cold, familiar slide of dread. The kind I'd felt the day Clara said I was holding the company back. This felt different. This was personal. Do you think Clara? I started, then cut myself off. The thought tasted like poison. I didn't want to believe it, but in this city, people rarely hurt you for nothing. Isabella watched me for a moment, then surprised me. You're not the kind of man who shrinks from a fight, she said, with that soft edge that made me want to argue and listen at the same time. What do you want to do? I looked at the screen, at Phoenix's little heartbeat of green. We stop them, and we find out who sent it. She smiled, small and fierce. Good. Then we start with logs, pivot to honeypots, and lure the attacker into revealing themselves. She handed me a cup of coffee. You code. I hunt. We worked all night to silhouettes bent over displays in a room that smelled like heat and copper. We traded strategies like old friends. At some point, when the sun was a faint bruise on the horizon, I said, half joking, if this is Clara, I'll make sure she watches the world I build swallow the one she stole. Isabella's laugh was quiet. Dangerous to wish for revenge, she said. It eats you smaller. Maybe, I said, but it's satisfying. She regarded me with that look that didn't pity. Then be satisfied with results, not ruin. By noon, we had a breadcrumb trail, a shell company linked to Daniel Reed's frequent contractor network. The same Daniel who'd slid into Clara's orbit like a damn moth to a chandelier. Adrian told me to keep my head down and let legal handle it. Legal preferred long memos and slow justice. I preferred speed. I sent a quiet query to a private cybersecurity contact. The reply landed like a hammer. Daniel Reed and an obscure consulting firm tied to Vance Holdings. My hands were steady, but my stomach flipped. This wasn't just dirty work. It was war. Clara had always been clean with her cruelty, surgical, efficient, corporate. This was her style. Sabotage that read like an accident. That night, armed with a trace and a stack of screenshots, I walked into her office. She looked up from her desk. Makeup flawless, hair a sculpture of confidence. "Ethan," she said, voice cool. "To what do I owe the pleasure?" I put the folder down so she could see everything. The logs, the proxies, the contractor invoices that traced Daniel's shell. "Care to explain why someone is trying to cripple Phoenix?" I asked. Clara's eyes didn't flicker. For a moment I saw the woman who'd once kissed me on top of a budget spreadsheet. The woman who'd whispered we can do anything together over stale conference room coffee. Then the mask slid back into place. "I don't know what you're accusing me of," she said. "But if you have evidence, go to the board. So you'll let your lover sabotage my company," I said, feeling fiercer with each word. The room felt small, like a trap closing. Her nostrils flared. "I won't be insulted by this, Ethan. You're hurt. You're vindictive." I nearly laughed. "Vindictive? Maybe, but this isn't personal. This is professional." I had to wrench control back from the part of me that wanted to break. "If you're involved, own it. If not, stop the contractors. Turn them off." She stood, suddenly dangerously calm. "You're asking me to sabotage my own company's future. I won't be bullied into theater." I left, the folder heavier than when I walked in. On the elevator down, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "Meet me. Midnight. Dock 7. My first instinct was to ignore it. My second was to call Adrian. My third, and the loudest, was to meet whoever had tipped the message, because whoever it was had risked everything to send it. Midnight at Dock 7 smelled like salt and diesel and secrets. I stepped from the shadow into a figure leaning against a crate. Isabella. She'd changed out of her sneakers into boots, a baseball cap low. "You look like a man on a deadline," she said. "You always did. You shouldn't be here," I said. She shrugged. "Neither should you, but you are. And that means you're not done. Look." She handed me a phone. On it was a recording. Daniel's voice, arrogant and careless, briefing contractors about disrupting the competitor's launch. The voice was unmistakable. My chest hollowed. Proof and poison, both in my hand. Isabella watched me, expression unreadable. "I don't like being anyone's accessory," she said quietly. "I don't help kings take thrones. I help the small men who actually build stuff." The confession landed like a warm hand on my shoulder. For the first time since Clara's boardroom, I felt something else grow inside me. Not just anger, but strategy. "If we expose this," I said, "we don't just punish them. We protect Phoenix." She nodded. "And maybe you get to sleep at night." We drove back into the city like conspirators. The plan was messy, risky, glorious. Gather proof, lead to the right watchdog journalists, and let the market do the rest. Adrian approved. I fed the docs. The next morning, headlines broke. Reed Consulting implicated in cyber sabotage against emerging AI firm. Daniel's public apology was thin. Clara's statement was cooler, a pledge to cooperate fully. The board called an emergency meeting. Clara's face was composed, but when our eyes met across the room, there was no warmth left. Only calculation. Later that night, watching Isabella laugh over takeout in the co-working kitchen, I realized how dangerous it was to trust someone, and how necessary. "Why did you help me?" I asked, voice low. She popped a fry into her mouth, shrugged. "Because you seemed like the kind of man worth rooting for. And because someone needed to stop the people who stab from afar." She glanced at me. "Besides, you make good coffee." I smiled, because it was true. She made everything feel lighter, like the weight of the boardroom could be lifted with a joke and a repair manual. When you're drowning, you don't notice the hand that pulls you up until you're breathing again. Isabella's hand had been there in the dark, The light she offered wasn't blinding. It was steady, and I was tired of being burned by shadows. Chapter 4. Building from the ruins 3 weeks after the headlines. The city forgot the scandal, but I didn't. The vultures had eaten Daniel Reed alive, and Clara's spotless image was cracked, though she acted like nothing had happened. Meanwhile, Phoenix Systems, my company, was growing teeth. We'd moved into a glass-fronted floor downtown, all light and air. My name wasn't on the door. I didn't need it there. I preferred watching people underestimate me. The first hires were quiet geniuses, the kind who lived on caffeine and spite. And right in the center of it all was Isabella, sleeves rolled up, hair tied back, commanding chaos with calm precision. She'd gone from consultant to coup in a month. I didn't even remember promoting her. It just happened. Your prototype demo's in 4 hours, she said one morning, handing me a coffee. Try to look less like you're at your own funeral. I'm not nervous, I said. She raised an eyebrow. You've rewritten your pitch for Tom's. Fine, I admitted. Maybe I'm slightly aware that half the board wants me to fail. That's their job, she said, grinning. Yours is to make them regret betting against you. Her confidence was infectious. 4 hours later, I walked into the demo room like I owned it, and maybe, for the first time since Clara, I did. Phoenix's AI model projected real-time logistics efficiency maps, predicting supply chain collapses days before they happen. Investors went from polite curiosity to open hunger in minutes. The applause was thunderous. Adrian slapped my back so hard my ribs rattled. But through all the noise, my eyes found Isabella at the back of the room, smiling, small but proud. I hadn't realized until then how much I'd wanted that look. That night, when the last investor left, the office felt eerily quiet. The city lights cut through the glass, painting her face in silver and gold. You did it, she said softly. We did it, I wanted to say. Instead, I just leaned against the table and watched her. You always this good at saving lost cousins. Her lips curved. Only the ones who fight back. For a second, the air between us shifted, charged, fragile. She looked away first. You should go home. Get some sleep. I haven't had a home in a long time, I said before I could stop myself. She blinked, something flickering in her eyes. Then maybe it's time to build one. By the end of the quarter, Phoenix was turning heads across the industry. We'd landed our first government contract, hired 50 new staff, and even been invited to the Global Tech Forum, the same stage where Clara once called me her greatest asset. Funny. Now she was the one calling my investors behind the scenes, pretending to congratulate me. I wasn't naive. I knew she'd try to worm her way back into my orbit. The corporate world was small, too small for clean breaks, and I was right. She called one evening, just as I was locking up. Ethan, she said, her voice sweet and careful, like I was a child she didn't want to startle. We should talk. I almost laughed. About what? The weather? Or how your team tried to destroy me? That wasn't me, she said quickly. You know Daniel went rogue. I didn't mean for any of it to happen. Lies wrapped in silk. Once, I might have believed her. I don't care what you meant, I said quietly. I care what you did. A pause. Then, softly, you've changed. Yeah, I said. I finally learned to stop loving people who only look in mirrors, and I hung up. The next morning, Isabella was waiting in my office with 2 cups of coffee and 1 raised eyebrow. You look like you barely slept. Old ghosts don't like staying buried, I said. She studied me. Then stop letting them haunt your house. Easier said than done, she smirked. Everything worth doing is. There was something grounding about her, steady where Clara had been sharp, real where Clara had been glitter. Isabella wasn't a goddess. She was a storm that learned how to stand still. Later that week, I found her alone on the balcony, hair whipping in the night breeze, city stretching out below us. Do you ever think about leaving? I asked. She tilted her head. Leaving what? This world. The suits, the deals, the endless climb. She laughed softly. Every day. But then I remember something my father said. You don't have to love the ladder to climb it. You just need to know where it leads. I smiled. And where's yours leading? She turned to face me. Ask me when you stop running from yours. A week later, we landed a partnership deal worth $80 million. For the first time, Phoenix was mentioned in the same breath as Van Steck. Clara's name, my old life, my scar. Adrian texted me. She's furious. You've outgrown her. I didn't reply. I just stared out at the skyline and whispered, good. But that night, alone in my apartment, I couldn't shake Isabella's words. Build a home, not a company, not an empire. A place that didn't need walls to feel safe. Maybe I'd been chasing the wrong victory all along. Maybe winning wasn't proving Clara wrong. Maybe it was finally believing I deserved peace. Chapter 5. When the past knocks again 3 months after the Phoenix breakthrough. My calendar was stacked from dawn to midnight. Investors, government liaisons, R&D teams, everyone wanted a piece of the miracle company that had crawled out of my wreckage. I barely had time to breathe, let alone think about her until she showed up. It was a Thursday evening. The city was drowned in rain and neon. Isabella had gone home early for once, insisting I needed rest too. I stayed behind, drafting the next quarter plan. That's when the elevator chimed. The door slid open and there she was, Clara Vance. Not on a screen, not in the papers. Flesh and perfumed Ethan, she said softly, stepping out like she still owned the room. You look good. I didn't stand. You look the same. Cold suits you. Her smile faltered for a second before she recovered. I wanted to talk. Just 5 minutes. You had 3 years, I said, and you used every second to turn love into collateral. She flinched, eyes glossy. I made mistakes. You made choices. I corrected. Mistakes are accidents. You signed mine in ink. She walked closer, ignoring the venom in my tone. I've been following Phoenix. You're incredible, Ethan. You built all this from nothing. From betrayal. I said. It's stronger than steel. A silence stretched. Rain tapped against the glass walls behind her. Finally, she whispered, Julian's gone. My pen stilled. Gone. He left the company. Left me. So that was it. Her empire of illusions had collapsed, and now she was looking for something solid. Something familiar. I leaned back in my chair. And you came here hoping the man you buried was still waiting with flowers. Her voice broke, almost a whisper. I came here hoping the man I loved would listen. The word love twisted something deep inside me, nostalgia or pity. I couldn't tell. But before I could speak, the door opened again. Isabella froze at the threshold, rain dripping from her umbrella. She took in the scene, Clara standing close to my desk, my expression unreadable land for a heartbeat. None of us moved. Sorry, Isabella said evenly. Didn't realize you had company. Come in, I said. You might want to hear this. Clara turned, her polished confidence cracking. You must be the assistant. Isabella smiled without warmth. Actually. You were saying. The air thickened. 2 worlds colliding past and present. Clara's lips curled. You've done well for yourself, Ethan. Surrounding yourself with loyal staff, loyalty, Isabella said, stepping closer. Is earned, not bought. I almost laughed at the electricity between them. Clara, I said, standing at last. You came here to find closure. So let's give you that. I took the divorce file from my drawer, the one I kept out of habit. Maybe masochism. Man slid it across the table. Whatever you're looking for, it's not here anymore. She looked down at the folder, then at me. For the first time, her voice trembled. You really don't feel anything. I feel free, I said. That's enough. She swallowed hard, nodded once, and left. Her heels echoed down the hall like the last nails in a coffin. The door clicked shut. Silence returned. Isabella exhaled slowly. That was intense. Sorry you had to see that, I said. She shrugged. It's good to meet ghosts. Makes you appreciate the living. I looked at her, really looked. Damp hair clinging to her neck, tired eyes still steady. You handled her better than I did. I've had practice, she said softly. People like her built my scars. For a moment, I wanted to tell her everything, the sleepless nights, The anger that never truly left, the way her calm steadied me. Instead, I just said, "Thank you." She tilted her head. "For what?" "For staying." Her smile was small, almost shy. "Someone has to keep you from burning down your own empire." Later that night, I found myself standing at the office window. The rain had stopped, the city glowing like molten glass. Clara's visit felt like a closed chapter. Yet under the quiet hum of the skyline, another thought lingered. What if Isabella ever walked away too? The idea left a hollow ache I didn't want to name. My phone buzzed. A message from her. "Get some sleep, boss. Big presentation tomorrow." I typed back, "Only if you promise to have breakfast with me after." The three dots blinked. Then her reply came. "Deal." I smiled, pocketed the phone, and whispered to the night, "Maybe this time, I won't lose what matters." Chapter 6. The Empire Strikes Back. The morning after Clara's visit, I expected peace, closure, maybe even relief. Instead, my phone exploded with alerts before sunrise. Breaking news: Vance Group to challenge Phoenix Dynamics patent claim. Ex-CEO Clara Vance returns to the boardroom. I stared at the screen, jaw tight. So that's how she wanted to play it. Closure. Huh. I should have known better. By the time I reached the office, the entire building was vibrating with tension. My executive team was already waiting in the glass conference room. Isabella stood at the head of the table, phone in hand, eyes sharp as cut glass. She didn't waste a second. "Vance's lawyers filed an injunction overnight," she said. "They're claiming your AI logistics design was based on proprietary Vance code." I took the file she handed me. The accusation was laughable. Phoenix's system was built from scratch. But it wasn't about truth. It was about headlines, leverage, and chaos. "She's trying to bleed us dry in court," I muttered. Isabella met my gaze. "She's trying to bleed you. The company's just collateral." For a moment, the room faded. It was just me and the ghost of Clara's smirk. The same woman who used to say, "Business is war. Ethan, don't bring your heart to the battlefield." Funny. Now she was the one swinging emotion like a weapon. "Get the legal team in here," I said finally. "And PR. If she wants a war, we'll make it public." Isabella arched a brow. "Public? People love underdogs," I said. "Let's remind them who built this empire from ashes." The next few days were a blur of headlines, interviews, and strategy sessions. The world watched as Phoenix Dynamics, the miracle startup, went head-to-head with its former parent company, and me, its founder, went head-to-head with a woman who'd once called me hers. Every night, I went home exhausted, but Isabella was always there. Sometimes she brought food, sometimes silence. Both helped. One evening, after a 16-hour day, I found her in my office, half asleep over a pile of reports. I smiled. "You should go home." She didn't open her eyes. "Not until you do, stubborn," I murmured. "Efficient," she corrected, sitting up and stretching. "The investors are nervous. If we win this case, Phoenix's valuation triples. If we lose, we won't." I cut in. She looked at me for a long moment. "You sound sure." "I am," I said, "because this time, I'm not fighting alone." A slow smile touched her lips. "Then let's win big." 2 weeks later, the court date arrived. Cameras flashed outside the courthouse. Reporters shouted my name like vultures circling fresh meat. Clara stood on the opposite side, flanked by her legal team. She looked immaculate, poised, polished, every inch the CEO she'd trained herself to be. Our eyes met across the chaos. For a heartbeat, time folded. I saw every version of us, the lovers, the partners, the enemies. Then I turned away. Inside the courtroom, her lawyers argued that Phoenix had used her company's confidential algorithms. My team dismantled each claim, piece by piece. Isabella's data models were airtight, her arguments surgical. But Clara wasn't done. When she took the stand, she played her final card. "I shared those concepts with Mr. Hale while we were together," she said, voice trembling perfectly. "He had access to my research. If Phoenix's system resembles Vance's work, it's because I trusted him." The crowd murmured. A deliberate knife to the gut. She wasn't just attacking my company, she was rewriting our history. My lawyer leaned in. You don't have to testify. The records speak for themselves. But I stood anyway. I'll speak, I said. The judge nodded. Proceed, Mr. Hale. I looked at Clara, then at the court. She's right about one thing, I began. She did trust me. I trusted her too. I gave her everything, my loyalty, my ideas, my love. And she sold all three to the highest bidder. A ripple went through the room. I continued, calm but firm. Phoenix was born after that. From the ruins of betrayal, every line of code, every design, every sleepless night, it's mine. Built not from theft, but from loss. And I wouldn't change a damn thing. Clara's face cracked just slightly, but enough. When the verdict came a week later, Phoenix Dynamics was cleared of all allegations. Vance Group was ordered to pay damages for defamation. We'd won. The celebration that night was electric. Champagne, laughter, the city glittering below us. But my eyes kept finding Isabella. When the noise faded and the crowd thinned, I found her on the balcony, leaning against the railing, when playing with her hair. Victory looks good on you, I said. She turned, smiling. It looks better on you. Couldn't have done it without you. You'd have found a way, she said softly. You always do. I stepped closer. Maybe. But I like my odds better when you're here. Something shifted in the air, familiar. Dangerous, undeniable. Her eyes met mine. Careful, Ethan. People might think the boss is catching feelings. I smiled. Let them. Chapter 7. Lines we shouldn't cross. Celebration ended past midnight. But sleep never came. The city outside my window pulsed with life, while my mind replayed Isabella's smile on the balcony, bright, unguarded. Dangerous, I told myself. It was nothing. Gratitude, relief, the rush of victory after months of war. But when I closed my eyes, I could still hear her voice. Careful, Ethan. Like a warning I didn't want to obey. By morning, the world had already crowned us heroes. Business Weekly. Phoenix triumphs over Vance and new king rises. Investors flooded my inbox. Partners set champagne. Even old rivals called to congratulate me. But Clara didn't call. She didn't have to. Her silence was his own message. At the office, things felt different. The air buzzed with quiet admiration, with pride. And yet, every time Isabella walked into the room, I caught myself watching her too long. She noticed, of course. She always did. Are you going to keep staring? She said one afternoon. Or actually tell me what's wrong with this proposal. I blinked back to reality. You changed the logistics clause again. It made more sense that way, she said. Unless you're distracted by something else. Her tone was teasing, but her eyes held something sharper. I leaned back in my chair. You're enjoying this, aren't you? Watching you squirm. A little, she smiled. It's rare to see you off balance. I should have said something clever, deflected. But instead, I said quietly, you do that to me a lot lately. Her smile faded, replaced by silence heavy enough to choke the air between us. Then she looked away. We have a meeting in 10 minutes, she said, gathering her files. The moment slipped through my fingers like smoke. The night I stayed late, habit, maybe punishment. The office lights had gone dim when I heard footsteps behind me. Isabella again. She sat down to coffee cups and slid one toward me. You forget to eat, so I brought caffeine instead. I laughed softly. Is this what caring looks like in corporate warfare? Don't flatter yourself, she said. I just don't want you fainting before our investor summit. We stood there, surrounded by quiet screens and the soft hum of servers. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Finally, she said, you know, when I joined Phoenix, I didn't plan on staying long. That surprised me. Really? I thought you'd crash and burn within a year. She smiled faintly. You were angry, reckless, obsessed with beating her. But then, you changed. You built something worth believing in. I looked at her, and for the first time, I saw how tired she was, how much she'd given up to stand by me. I couldn't have done it without you, I said. She shook her head. You would have found someone else. I wouldn't have wanted to. Her eyes flicked to mine, startled, then softened. Ethan, before she could finish, the power flickered, the lights cut out. Plunging the office into darkness, the emergency lamps kicked in, casting everything in soft amber. The silence stretched. The city lights painted her face gold, and something inside me finally broke. I stepped closer. Tell me to stop, and I will. She didn't move, didn't breathe. When I kissed her, it wasn't fireworks or chaos, it was quiet, slow. Like finding something I'd been missing for too long. When we pulled apart, she whispered, "We shouldn't. I know. This could ruin everything. I know that too." But neither of us stepped back. The next morning, reality hit like cold water. We were back in the boardroom, side by side, surrounded by analysts and shareholders, professional, composed, pretending nothing had happened. But every time our hands brushed when exchanging documents, my pulse tripped. Every time she said Mr. Hale in that crisp tone, I heard the way she'd whispered my name hours earlier. By evening, we were both exhausted from pretending. When the last meeting ended, I said quietly, "Dinner." She hesitated. "Ethan, no investors, no contracts, just dinner," she sighed. "Fine. One dinner." The restaurant was quiet, candlelight low. The kind of place that makes secrets feel safe. We talked about everything but the kiss. About strategy, expansion, dreams. She wanted to open an education fund for underprivileged engineers. I wanted to build tech labs across Asia. Somewhere between the laughter and the silence, her hand brushed mine again, and this time, she didn't pull away. "Do you ever think about her?" she asked suddenly. "Clara?" I nodded. "Sometimes, but not the way I used to. Back then, I wanted revenge. Now, I just hope she watches the news and realizes what she lost. And what did you lose?" I looked at her. My heart, maybe, but I think I found it again. She held my gaze, eyes soft, unreadable. Then she said quietly, "Be careful, Ethan. Love looks different when it's built from ruins." I smiled sadly. Maybe that's why it lasts longer. Later, when we left the restaurant, I noticed a black car parked across the street. The tinted window rolled down just enough for me to catch a flash of red lipstick and a familiar smirk. Clara. Watching. My pulse froze. She didn't say a word, just smiled and drove away into the night. I stood there, hands clenched, wind cold against my face. The past, it seemed, wasn't done with me yet. Chapter 8. The ghost returns. He should have known peace was temporary. Success has a way of attracting ghosts, especially the kind that smile before they destroy you. For 3 months, Isabella and I ran Phoenix side by side. The company soared, profits doubled, and our partnership, whatever it was, became the stuff of whispered office legends. But underneath that victory, something dark was stirring. It started with a headline: Vance Industries announces global comeback. New division head, Clara Reynolds. My coffee went cold in my hand. Clara. She hadn't just returned, she'd joined Vance Industries, the very empire Isabella once led and I had beaten. The message was clear. Round. By noon, my phone buzzed. A known number. But I didn't need to check the caller ID. "Miss me?" Her voice was velvet familiar, dangerous. "What do you want, Clara?" "Want?" she repeated, laughing softly. "Maybe I just want to congratulate my ex-husband. You've built quite an empire. Shame it's sitting on sand. You always were dramatic." "Oh, Ethan," she purred. "You haven't even seen the show yet." Double quotes click. The line went dead. But I knew Clara. She didn't make threats for sport. Every word she spoke was a countdown. Later that day, Isabella walked into my office with a file in hand, her expression sharp. "You need to see this." Inside were copies of contracts, investment agreements, and a series of confidential documents marked leaked. "Where did these come from?" I asked. "Vance Industries' press release hinted at inside information," she said grimly. "Clara must have gotten her hands on old project drafts, blueprints we scrapped a year ago. But the timing is deliberate. She's coming after Phoenix's credibility. Then we go after her first. Isabella frowned. That's exactly what she wants. She started a war. I'm just returning the favor. Ethan, she said softly. You can't fight every battle with anger. I met her gaze. I don't fight with anger anymore, Isabella. I fight with memory. The next few weeks were chaos. Rumors, lawsuits, anonymous whistleblowers. Every morning brought a new fire to put out. Through it all, Isabella stayed at my side calm, ruthless, brilliant. One night, after 18 hours of crisis meetings, I found her asleep at her desk, her head resting on a pile of reports. The glow from her computer painted her face in soft light. I stood there, watching her breathe, and something inside me ached. I took off my jacket and draped it over her shoulders. She stirred. Still here. Always, I said quietly. She smiled faintly. Then we'll survive this too. But Clara didn't plan to fight fair. At a shareholders' gala 2 weeks later, she showed up uninvited, dressed in black, confidence wrapped around her like armor. Clara, I said coldly when she approached. You weren't on the list. Relax, she said, plucking a glass of champagne from a passing tray. I don't need an invitation to visit an old friend. Isabella appeared at my side, her posture regal. You're trespassing. Clara smiled, eyes gleaming. So this is the new queen? How cute. Tell me, Isabella, how does it feel inheriting someone else's leftovers? The words sliced through the air like glass. Before I could speak, Isabella did, calm, controlled, lethal, funny. From where I stand, you're the one still begging for attention from your ex. Clara's smile faltered. Just for a second, then she leaned close to me, her perfume sharp and sweet. You can play pretend all you want, Ethan. But you and I both know what fire does, it always burns back. And with that, she walked away, leaving a trail of whispers and tension in her wake. The next morning, Phoenix's stock dipped by 3 points. Anonymous media outlets began reporting a supposed conflict of interest between me and Isabella. Photos from the gala, Clara smirking beside us, Isabella's glare. My clenched jaw spread like wildfire. She planted the story. By evening, investors demanded a statement. I stared at the PR drafts. Every word sounded wrong. Every sentence screamed weakness. Then Isabella walked in, eyes red, but unbroken. We need to deny the rumors, Ethan. If we stay silent, they'll think it's true. I looked at her, really looked. The exhaustion, the fight, the unspoken fear. And I made a choice. No denial. I said quietly. Let them talk. Her eyes widened. You can't be serious. I am. They want to see us fracture. We'll give them the opposite. The next morning, we walked into the press conference together, side by side. No scripts, no rehearsed lines. I stepped up to the mic. Phoenix stands for truth, innovation, and loyalty. And that includes loyalty to the people who build it. Then I turned slightly to her, in front of cameras and 1,000 watching eyes. She's not just my partner in business, I said, voice steady. She's the reason this company exists. Gasps rippled through the room. Isabella froze for a heartbeat, then smiled soft, genuine, dangerous. When we left the stage, she whispered, you just made us a target. I grinned. Good. Targets are harder to ignore. That night, my phone buzzed again. Clara. Her text read only one line. Check your inbox. Ethan, let's see if your angel still smiles after this. I opened the email. Attached were photos. Private, intimate. Of me and Isabella alone in my office. The night the lights went out. My chest went cold. For a long time, I just stared at the screen, listening to the sound of everything I'd rebuilt begin to crack. Chapter 9. The scandal-stormed world can destroy you in a headline. By morning, every business outlet had my face on its homepage next to Isabella's. The photos Clara leaked were everywhere. CEO caught in office affair. Phoenix empire built on lies. Vance's former wife strikes back. They didn't even bother blurring our faces. The board called an emergency meeting at 7 a.m. Half of them couldn't even look me in the eye. Ethan, one of the senior directors, began carefully. These images, they raise serious concerns about workplace conduct. I leaned back in my chair, fingers steepled. You mean the photos someone clearly leaked to sabotage us? Another board member cleared his throat. Intentions aside, perception matters. Our investors are spooked. Stocks dropped 12% overnight. Then they can watch them rise again, I said flatly. The room went silent across from me. Isabella sat rigid, her usual composure cracking just enough for me to see the panic underneath. When the meeting adjourned, she pulled me aside. Ethan, this isn't something we can just ignore. Clara is trying to destroy both of us. She won't succeed. You don't know her like I do, she said, voice trembling slightly. She'll keep digging until she finds something that breaks you? I met her eyes. Then I'll break her first. By afternoon, reporters were camped outside the Phoenix headquarters. Cameras flashed the moment I stepped out of my car. Mr. Cole, is it true you and Ms. Vance were involved during her marriage? Is this why she left Vance Industries? Did your divorce settlement fund Phoenix? I ignored them, walked straight into the building. Inside, my assistant Kevin was waiting. Pale and jittery. Sir, Clara's lawyers just filed an injunction. She's claiming ownership over Phoenix's initial patents. She says you used confidential Vance data during development. Of course she did, I muttered. She's also scheduled an exclusive interview with the Global Ledger tonight. They're teasing a personal confession. I exhaled sharply. She's not even subtle anymore. Kevin hesitated. What should we do? Prepare a statement, I said. But don't release it yet. We respond after her interview, not before. Kevin nodded, eyes wide. Understood, sir. That night, I sat alone in my penthouse, the city glittering beyond the glass. I didn't turn on the TV. I didn't need to watch it live to know what she'd say. When the call finally came, it wasn't from Clara. It was from Isabella. Turn on Channel 5, she whispered. I did. There she was, Clara Reynolds, sitting under the warm lights of a studio, tears shimmering perfectly in her eyes. I loved him, she was saying softly. I gave him everything, but he used me. He stole my company's secrets and left me for dead. The interviewer leaned forward. And now he's with your former colleague, Ms. Vance? Clara looked down, her voice breaking just enough to sound believable. I wish her luck, but she'll learn the truth soon enough. The camera zoomed in her tears, her trembling hands, her victim act. I turned the TV off, for the first time in years. My hands shook. Isabella's voice came through the phone, low and tight. She just buried us. Ethan, no, I said, standing slowly. She just gave me permission. The next morning, I walked into Phoenix's press room without a written speech. Cameras clicked. Reporters muttered. I faced them all. You've heard Clara Reynolds' story. I began, my voice echoing through the hall. Now you'll hear mine. Whispers spread instantly. I won't hide behind lawyers or PR. Everything I've built was mine. Every decision I made was legal, transparent, and earned. Someone shouted, "What about the photos?" I smiled faintly. To people working late, we're caught in a moment of exhaustion. But if the world wants to turn integrity into scandal, that says more about it than it does about me. Do you deny a personal relationship with Ms. Vance? I paused. The air felt heavy. Isabella was standing at the back of the room, her gaze locked on me. Finally, I said, I don't deny loyalty, or respect, or partnership, but love. That's between me and my conscience. The cameras exploded in flashes, and with that, I walked out. 2 hours later, my phone buzzed again. Clara, you think words can save you? I typed back, no, but truth will bury you. Then I sent a message to Kevin, launch Project Ember. He replied instantly, Sir, are you sure? That means releasing everything. I confirmed. Project Ember had been my backup plan since day one. A sealed archive of every illegal transaction, every secret partnership, and every falsified audit Vance Industries had buried under Clara's name. When the files hit the media 20 minutes later, the internet exploded. Headlines shifted overnight. Whistleblower exposes Vance Industries fraud scheme. Clara Reynolds implicated in multi-million-dollar cover-up. Phoenix CEO clears name with evidence leak. within hours, Clara's empire began to crumble. Her board dropped her. Her sponsors withdrew. By sunset, her name was poisoned. I watched it all unfold from my office window. The city skyline painted in FIRELIGHT. Isabella entered quietly. You did it. No, I said, staring out. She did it to herself. She moved closer, her reflection beside mine in the glass. So what now? I turned toward her, voice low. Now, we build higher. And next time someone tries to burn me down, I smiled faintly. I'll be the one holding the match. The night, as the world watched Clara Reynolds fall, I poured myself a drink and raised it to the silence. To betrayal, to karma, to survival, and to the woman who once tried to break me, but ended up teaching me how to win. Chapter 10. The final reckoning. Night the storm ended. The city went silent. Clara Reynolds was finished. Every network, every outlet, every whisper now spoke her name like a warning. But I didn't celebrate, because winning against her didn't feel like victory. It felt like closure, still. Something in me knew it wasn't over. Not yet. At 3 a.m., my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered out of instinct. Ethan, her voice. Hoarse, faint, broken. Clara. There was a pause. Wind howled in the background. They took everything, she said quietly. The company, the board, even the apartment. I said nothing. I just wanted to love you, she whispered. But you were always chasing something higher. Don't rewrite the story now, I said flatly. You didn't love me. You wanted to own me, she laughed bitterly. Maybe you're right. Maybe I just wanted someone to kneel the way I did. Then her tone shifted, softer, fragile. You won, Ethan. Isn't that enough? I looked out the window, city lights stretching endlessly below. Winning was never the point. Then what was? Becoming someone who doesn't beg. The line went quiet. For a moment, I thought she'd hung up. Then she said something that made my chest tighten. Tell Isabella. She's not the villain I thought she was. Don't let her turn into me. Before I could respond, the call disconnected. The next morning, the news broke. Clara Reynolds found unconscious in her penthouse. Overdose suspected. The media called it tragedy. I called it consequence. But deep down, I felt no satisfaction. Just silence. I stood on the balcony of my penthouse, whiskey in hand, watching the first light of dawn stretch across the skyline. Isabella joined me a few minutes later. Barefoot, her hair tied loosely. Are you okay? She asked quietly. I don't know, I admitted. I thought I'd feel something. Relief. Justice. Instead, it's just empty. She nodded slowly. That's what revenge does. It fills the hole just enough to remind you it's still there. I glanced at her. You sound like you've been there. She smiled faintly. I have. We stood there in silence for a while, the wind tugging at our sleeves. Finally, she said, You don't have to keep fighting anymore, Ethan. I let out a dry laugh. Fighting is all I've ever known. Then learn something else, she said softly. Learn to live. A week later, Phoenix hosted its largest investor summit yet. The press called it the Empire's return. I called it a rebirth. Isabella walked beside me through the ballroom, radiant and calm. Every head turned, not in gossip, but in respect. During her speech, she said something that stayed with me long after. Empires aren't built by perfect people, she said, her voice steady. They're built by the ones who've already fallen once and decided to stand again. I felt her words in my bones. When she stepped off stage, I caught her wrist. Beautiful speech, she smiled. True speech. That night, after everyone had left, I found her on the rooftop terrace overlooking the city. The skyline glowed beneath us. The same skyline that had watched me fall. Break. Rebuild. I used to think power was the only thing that mattered, I said quietly. Now I realize it was never power I wanted. It was freedom. She turned toward me, her eyes reflecting the city lights. And do you feel free now? For the first time, I said. Because I stopped living in someone else's story, she smiled. Then maybe it's time to start writing your own. I took a step closer. Maybe I don't want to write it alone. Her breath caught. Careful, Ethan. That almost sounded like a confession. It was, for the first time. She didn't look away. She just whispered, "You're late." And then she kissed me. No cameras. No contracts. No lies. Just people who'd spent years drowning in the corporate war and finally remembered how to breathe. Weeks later, I visited Clara's grave. A small headstone, quiet and simple. No flowers. No visitors. I placed a single white rose down and whispered, "You were wrong, Clara. Love isn't a weakness. It's the one thing that keeps us from becoming monsters." Then I walked away, the wind carrying her name like a secret. Now, when I look out over the empire I built, I don't see numbers. I see the people who tried to bury me, the woman who stood beside me, the ghosts I left behind. And sometimes, when the city goes quiet and the skyline burns gold, I think about the boy I used to be, the one who begged, the one who broke, and I almost don't recognize him. I'm not him anymore. I'm something else. A survivor, a builder, a man who lost everything and somehow found everything that mattered.